students, today in this class I will continue the topic, that is divisible profits, and also the transfer of profit to general reserve. So before going to explain the various provisions regarding the transfer of profit to general reserve, let us see one more example of the divisible profits. You can observe on the screen an example of a ABC company, right? The profits of ABC Limited for the year 2017 and 18 are inadequate, and considering the following cases, determine the declaration of dividends. And just note down this example. 3 years profit is given, 14 and 15, 15 and 16, 16 and 17, and dividend paid in these years are given. Case 1, in the year 14 and 15, dividend declared is 10%, and in the year 15 and 16, no dividend is declared, and the 16 and 17, 5% dividend is declared. And case 2, 14 and 15, no dividend is declared, 15 and 16 also no dividend declared, and even 16 and 17 also no dividend is declared. And in case 3, 14 and 15, no dividend, 15 and 16, 12% dividend, and 16 and 17 also no dividend. So, taking into consideration the rate of dividend declared by the company in the 3 years, you have to determine whether the company can declare dividend in the above three cases or not. Right? As you already know that divisible profits, the various provisions regarding the declaration of dividends, and also in the case of inadequate profits, insufficient profits in any year, what amount that could be transferred from the general reserve to declare dividends, and the various provisions we have seen in the case of inadequate profits, or the profit is insufficient, or the current year's profit is not adequate to declare dividends, right? The provisions of the Companies Act 2013 states that, right, in the case of inadequacy of profit, suppose the company wants to declare dividend, the rate of dividend declared should not be more than the average rate of dividend declared by the company in the last 3 years. Condition number 1. And only 1/10 of the, right, paid up capital and free reserves can be withdrawn from the general reserve or accumulated profits, isn't it? Only 1/10 of the paid up capital and free reserves. That is the second condition. And the amount which is withdrawn from the general reserve first utilize set of the current year losses if there is any. And the fourth condition is the amount after drawing the amount from the general reserve, the balance in the general reserve should not fall below. Right? The balance in the general reserve should not fall below 15% of its paid up capital. If these conditions are fulfilled, we have seen earlier that company can transfer some amount from the general reserve to declare dividend. So in this example, you can just see here 3 years rate of dividend is given, 3 years rate of dividend, right? Whether the company is able to declare dividend or not, right? And if the company is able to declare dividend, what rate of dividend the company can declare here? Other information is not given. Other information relating to paid up capital, general reserve, amount in the accumulated surplus, all this information is not given here. But you can, on the basis of this information, you can state what rate of dividend company can declare, right, to the shareholders. Now, if you observe this, what rate of dividend the company can declare? Dividend can be declared. In case number 1, the average rate of dividend is, see, only in the case 1, only first year dividend is declared. That is First year, 14 and 15 dividend is 10%, 16 and 17 the dividend is 5%. So average dividend in the last 3 years is 10 plus 5 divided by 3. Average dividend 15 divided by 3. So average rate of dividend is 5%. Other information is not given, but only dividend rate of 3 years are given. And in the 3 years, only 2 years, first year and last year dividend is declared. The first year dividend is 10% and the last year dividend is 5%. So total 15% dividend. The average rate of dividend declared by the company in the last 3 years is 5%. Therefore, company can declare dividend up to 5%, not more than 5%, subject to other conditions. Other conditions? Other conditions we know that, right? Subject to other conditions, the company can declare a dividend of 5%, not more than 5%, and subject to other condition is, right, the amount that could be withdrawn is not more than 10% of its paid up capital and free reserves, right, and all other conditions you know. But all other information is not given, but other conditions you cannot apply here. Therefore, company can declare a dividend of not more than 5% in the first case. And in the second case, if you observe, the second case, all the previous 3 years, no dividend is declared. 14 and 15, 15 and 16, 16 and 17, no dividend is declared. Right? When there is no dividend declared in the last 3 years, can the company declare dividend in the current year by taking the amount from the general reserve? This is the question here. When the dividend is not declared in the previous 3 years, whether the company is able to declare dividend in the current year from the general reserve, right? But as in the case of case number 2, the average rate of dividend is not applicable in this case, right? In the first case, the average rate of dividend is applicable because in the previous 3 years, company declared dividend, and in any circumstances, if the company is not declared dividends in the previous 3 years, the average rate of dividend is not declared. As no dividend is declared in the last 3 years, so dividend for 17 and 18 can be any rate, right? There is no restriction regarding the rate of dividend in the second case, because in the last 3 years no dividend was declared. Therefore, in the current year 17 and 18, the company can declare dividend at any rate by taking sufficient amount from the, but the condition is 10% of the paid up capital and full reserves should be drawn, and after drawing the amount from the, right, reserves, the balance in the reserves should be more than 15% of paid up capital. Considering that point in mind, company can declare a rate of dividend. But average rate of dividend is not applicable in the second case, isn't it? And in the third case, you can see here, in the third case, only the first year there is no dividend, second year there is a 12% dividend, and third year also no dividend is declared by the company. Right? In the last 3 years, the average rate of dividend declared by the company is 4%. 12 divided by 3. Right? 4% dividend can be declared, dividend up to 4% subject to the completion of other conditions. Subject to other conditions, 4% dividend can be declared by the company. Therefore, the company not more than 4%. A company can declare a dividend of not more than 4% subject to the other condition. 10% of the amount to be drawn is not more than 10% of the paid up capital and reserves, and the company after withdrawing the amount from the reserve, the balance in the general reserve should be more than 15% of the paid up capital. These 3 conditions are applicable, right? The company can declare a dividend of not more than 4% in the third case. So this is what we have observed in the case of divisible profits, isn't it? And also the amount in case of inadequate profit or insufficient profit, the amount that could be transferred from the general reserve for the payment of dividends or for the maintenance of dividend rate. So these are the various conditions regarding the, or these are various provisions regarding the Companies Act to declare dividends and also to transfer the amount from the general reserve. Now, another important point to be considered at the time of preparing final accounts of the joint stock company is related to the transfer of profit to general reserve. Now here, the Companies Act of 1956 earlier, there was a restriction regarding the transfer of profit to general reserve, right? The existing provisions of Companies Act of 1956 restricts a specified percentage of profit to reserve that is not exceeding 10%, transfer of profit to reserve rule 1975. Now earlier, as per the Companies Act of 1956, isn't it? The company should transfer certain percentage of its profit to general reserve that is not exceeding 10% of the profit to its general reserve every year. Company earns profit in a particular year, company should transfer 10% of its profit, not more than 10% of profit to general reserve every year. That is as per the provisions of the Companies Act 1956. That is under the transfer of profit to reserve rule 1975. But this has been acknowledged, not acknowledged in the 2013 Act, and the company are free to transfer any or no amount of profit to the reserve. Section 123 and subsection 1 of the Companies Act 2013. Now in the present act, there is no such restriction, right? Earlier, company should transfer certain amount, certain percentage of profit to the reserve, not more than 10%. But this has not been acknowledged under the Companies Act of 2013. As per the section 123, subsection 1 of the Companies Act of 2013, companies are free to transfer any amount or no amount of profit to the reserve. So this is the condition as per the Companies Act of 2013. Right? There is no restriction regarding the transfer of profit to general reserve. Certain percentage of profit to general reserve. Company can transfer any amount or no amount of profit to general reserve as per the new Act of 2013. Isn't it? So there is no question of transferring. There is no compulsory transfer of profit, but companies it is as per the discretion of the company. It is as per the desires of the company whether can it transfer to general reserve or not. It is depends upon the decisions of the company, isn't it? Similar to the existing provisions of 1956 Act, the Companies Act of 2013 also provides that no dividend shall be declared or paid in case of inadequate profits by the company, subject to the rules yet to be notified, isn't it? So, here, under the Companies Act of 1956, right, the company, in the case of inadequate profits, company can declare dividend by transferring sufficient amount from the general reserve or accumulated profits. But the Companies Act 2013, right, the Act also provides that no dividend shall be declared or paid in the case of inadequate profit by the company. It is not compulsory. It is not compulsory to declare dividend, right, by the company in the year in which the company has inadequate or insufficient or no profits, or in the case of absence of profits, subject to the rules yet to be notified. Therefore, the earlier provisions of the Companies Act are not to be considered here. I mean, the Companies Act of 1956, the provisions of Companies Act of 1956 are not followed, right? Because in the new Act of 2013, right, there is no compulsion to transfer any amount from the profits to the general reserve. There is no compulsory. It is not compulsory. Therefore, the company may transfer any amount, or company need not cannot transfer any amount to general reserve, right? And also, the 2013 Act states that, right, inadequate profit or insufficient profit, company may declare dividend, company may not declare dividend also. That rules yet to be notified. So that is what the provisions regarding the companies, 2013 Act regarding the transfer of profit to the reserves, right? So there is no question of any examples, there is no question of any problem, because company can transfer any amount, company can transfer no amount to general reserve. This is regarding the transfer of profit to general reserve as per the Companies Act of 2013. Another important right point regarding the Companies Act, annual accounts of the companies, is managerial remuneration. As we have already studied this particular aspect in the graduation level, maybe it become fourth or fifth semester, corporate accounting. While studying corporate accounting, there is a particular aspect called as managerial remuneration, isn't it? So managerial remuneration, the earlier provisions, the provisions of the Companies Act 1956 state certain provisions regarding rules regarding the payment of managerial remuneration. And the Companies Act of 2013 also has made elaborate provisions for the payment of managerial remuneration. Right? The Companies Act of 2013 also made some of the provisions, elaborate provisions, some of the provisions regarding the payment of managerial remuneration. So, what are those provisions that needs to be studied here? Isn't it? Now, as per the or according to section 2 and subsection 78 of the Companies Act, remuneration means any money or its equivalent given or passed to any person for services rendered by him, and includes perquisites as defined under the Income Tax Act 1961. Remuneration is very simple, very common, right? Any amount paid to any person, or money or equivalent to money paid to any person, passed to any person for his services, right? Including the perquisites, including the special benefits which are given to that particular person. So, in the case of Janista companies also, there are number of managerial personnel like managing director, like whole-time director, part-time director, and these persons also receive some financial benefit for their services in the company. So, whatever services in the form of money, whatever benefit they receive in the form of money or equivalent to money, right, for their services in the company is called as managerial remuneration. Now, who are those managerial persons included in the Companies Act? Who are those managerial persons? Managerial persons are the managerial persons included as per the Companies Act: managing director, whole-time director, manager, part-time director, who shall be paid managerial remuneration according to 197 of the Companies Act 2013. There are number of managerial personnel appointed in the company. These managerial persons includes the MD, managing director. There may be whole-time directors and managers, and also part-time directors. Their work in the company and provide services in the company, and who shall be paid managerial remuneration. So all these persons are called as managerial persons. They are not, they are also employees of the company, but they do the managerial work and they have to pay remuneration according to section 197 of the Companies Act 2013. Not all the persons who are working in the company, only managerial persons like managing director, whole-time director, manager, and part-time directors will be paid managerial remuneration as per section 197 of the Companies Act 2013. Right? Now, what is the amount of remuneration that should be payable to the right managerial personnel? Individual ceiling on remuneration of managing director, manager, whole-time directors. What is the maximum amount that could be paid to the managerial personnel? Isn't it? See, this particular chart will give you the maximum amount of remuneration out of the profit, maximum percentage of profit, maximum percentage of net profit as remuneration payable to the managerial personnel, different categories of managerial personnel, isn't it? So all categories, overall limit for total remuneration to all managerial personnel is 11%. Right? All managerial personnel, as I told you, managing director, whole-time director, manager, and part-time directors. Right? If all these managerial personnel are working in a company, the maximum limit of profit, the maximum limit of managerial remuneration is 11% of the net profit, not more than that. Right? A company cannot pay more than 11% of profit as managerial remuneration to all managerial personnel. Maximum limit is 11%. And if the company has managing director for one managing director, right? Only company can pay 5% of the net profit as managerial remuneration. Managing director for more than one altogether. If the company has more than one managing director, the maximum overall limit of managerial remuneration is 10% of the net profit, right? If there is only one whole-time director, the maximum limit of managerial remuneration is 5% of the profit, and the company has more than one managing director, whole-time director for more than one for all together. Company has more than one whole-time director, right? And the maximum amount of remuneration more than one whole-time director is 10% of the profits. And similarly, manager, suppose the company has manager who cannot be more than one. If the company has a manager, it should be 5% of the profits, right? And the company's managerial personnel, suppose consists of managerial personnel consists of right manager who cannot be more than 5% and managing director or managing directors or managers with one or more whole-time directors, 10% of the profit, right? Managing director or directors or manager with one or more whole-time director, not part-time director, right? The maximum limit of managerial remuneration is, isn't it, 10% of the profit. Similarly, the directors for all, when no manager or managing director or whole-time director, the company has no manager, the company has no managing director, the company has no whole-time director, the company has directors, only directors, and it may be more than one. And the maximum amount of remuneration payable to the directors altogether is 3% of the profit. And suppose the company has part-time director with one or more whole-time director or managing director, right? Then the part-time director will be paid only 1% of the profit, net profits of the company. Now this is what the categories. You can note down this. These are the various, percentage of profit as payable to the managerial personnel as their remuneration. But if you observe this particular table, you can observe the maximum amount of remuneration payable to all managerial personnel put together. All managerial personnel put together is 11%, isn't it? Not more than 11%. Right? That means company cannot pay more than 11% of its profit to managerial personnel. Right? And depending upon the number of directors, number of full-time directors, number of managing directors, number of part-time directors, and also managers, the remuneration payable depends upon the percentage of profit that changes here that you can observe. But as per the provisions of the section 197 1 of the Companies Act 2013, right? There are certain restrictions here. The total managerial remuneration payable by a public company to its directors, including managing director, whole-time director, manager, in respect of any financial year, shall not exceed 11% of the profits of that company for that financial year, isn't it? And that should be computed in the manner laid down in the section 198, except that the remuneration of directors shall not be deducted from the gross profit, isn't it? So this condition is applicable in the case of payment of remuneration as per section 197 of the Companies Act. The maximum amount of remuneration payable to all directors, remuneration payable by a company to its directors, including all managing director, whole-time directors, managers, in respect of any financial year, is not exceeding 11% of the net profit, isn't it? And it should be computed in the manner laid out in the section 198 of the Companies Act. So the profit should be calculated as per the provisions of the section 198 of the Companies Act. Now 198 of the Companies Act states the expenses to be disallowed, expenses to be included, incomes to be disallowed, incomes to be included for the purpose of calculation of managerial remuneration. So those things should be considered, except that the remuneration of directors shall not be paid from the gross profit. Right? If the remuneration is on the basis of gross profit, 198 section is not applicable, isn't it? So, in order to calculate the remuneration to the managerial personnel on the basis of net profit, the calculation of net profit plays an important role. Our calculation of net profit is important, and the net profit should be calculated as per the provisions of the section 198 of the Companies Act. That we will discuss later. And as per the section only, we have to calculate the managerial remuneration. Right? 198 section, right, specifies the amount of expenses, amount of income that should be disallowed and allowed for the purpose of calculation of net profit. Right? Continuing that, provided that the company in general meeting may, with the approval of the central government, may authorize the payment of remuneration exceeding 11% of the net profit of the company, subject to the provisions of Schedule 5, isn't it? Now this is another important point to be considered. The overall limit, the maximum amount of remuneration payable by a company to all managerial personnel should not exceed 11% of the profits, isn't it? But the company in the general meeting may, with the approval of the central government, authorize the payment of remuneration exceeding 11% of the net profit of the company, subject to the provisions laid down in Schedule 5 of the Companies Act 2013. Even though the maximum limit of remuneration payable to the managerial personnel is 11% of their profit, the company can also pay more than 11% of the net profits as managerial remuneration to the managerial personnel. The condition that the approval of the central government, the company takes the approval of the central government subject to the provisions of Schedule 5 of the Companies Act, right? If approval of the central government is taken to pay remuneration to managerial personnel more than 11% of its profit, isn't it? Then the company can pay managerial remuneration more than 11%, right? So, it must pass the resolution in the general meeting, and the approval of the central government should be taken to pay more than 11% of the profits as remuneration subject to the provisions of the Schedule 5 of the Companies Act. Isn't it? Now, what are those provisions we should discuss? What are those provisions? And what remuneration that could be payable by the company to the managerial person. You can note down these things, right? The managerial remuneration payable by the company, 11% of its profit, maximum remuneration. But even the company can also pay more than 11% of its profit as managerial remuneration by taking the approval of the central government, subject to the provisions of the Companies Act, Schedule 5 of the Companies Act 2013, isn't it? Similarly, what are the provisions which are laid down in the Schedule 5 of the Companies Act? Right? The Schedule 5 of the Companies Act lays certain provisions regarding the payment of managerial remuneration. Now, this section 1 of the Schedule 5 states that remuneration to be paid by the company having profits. Remuneration that should be payable by the company having profits. If a company having profits in a financial year might pay remuneration to its managerial persons in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Act. Right? Section 1 of the Schedule 5 states that the company has profit. The company has profit, sufficient amount of profit. And the companies having profit in a financial year might pay remuneration to its managerial personnel in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Act. Sufficient profit. In the case of sufficient profit, as we have discussed earlier, the company has sufficient profits, the remuneration should be payable as per the provisions of the Companies Act. As per the provisions of the Companies Act. What are the provisions the Companies Act states when the company has sufficient amount of profit, right? The maximum amount of remuneration payable to the company, right, to all managerial personnel is not more than 11%, and depending upon the number of managerial personnel, the remuneration payable also changes. That is in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Act. But Section 2 of the Companies Act states that Section 2 of the Schedule 5 of the Companies Act says that remuneration by the company having no profits or inadequate profits without central government approval. Right? See, with the approval of the central government, a company can pay remuneration even more than 11% also if the company has profit. The company has profit. But if the company has no profits or inadequate profits without central government approval, what provisions are to be followed? Or what is the remuneration payable to the managerial personnel when the company has inadequate profits, when the company has no profits? Without taking central government approval, how the company can pay remuneration? Where in any financial year during the period of the managerial person, a company does not have any profit or inadequate profit, it may, without taking the central government approval, pay remuneration not exceeding the higher of the following limits given below. Right? Now, this condition, these things we have to note down here. Right? When there is no profit, when the profit is inadequate, the profit is not sufficient to pay managerial remuneration, right? The profits are not sufficient to pay managerial remuneration. Without taking the central government approval, company can pay certain amount as maximum amount as managerial remuneration not exceeding government. You can pay remuneration not exceeding the higher of the following limits. What is those following limits? What are those limits to be followed? Right? See, in the circumstances of inadequate profits or no profits, managerial remuneration should be payable to the managerial personnel. It does not mean that when the company incurs losses, no remuneration payable to the managerial personnel. Managerial personnel or the employees of the company, they should be paid remuneration for their services. Now, the question is, when the company has no profits, the company has inadequate profits, right? Without taking government's approval, central government's approval, what maximum remuneration payable to the managerial personnel? See, Schedule 5 of the Companies Act of 2013 states, in the case of inadequate profits or in the case of insufficient profits, right, no profits, the remuneration is payable on the basis of effective capital, right? Yearly remuneration payable to the managerial personnel on the basis of effective capital. If the effective capital of the company is negative or less than 5 crores, right, the maximum remuneration payable to the managerial personnel is 30 lakhs. It is increased to 60 lakhs now, isn't it? See, it is on the basis of effective capital of the company. The company's effective capital is not more than 5 crores, isn't it? Not more than 5 crores. Or company's effective capital is minus also, negative also. The remuneration should be payable not more than, right, maximum limit applicable as yearly remuneration 30 lakhs, or it is increased to 60 lakhs. Now, if the effective capital of the company is 5 crore but less than 100 crores, the maximum remuneration, yearly remuneration is 42 crores, now it is increased to 84 crores, right? If the maximum remuneration is, effective capital is more than 100 crores but less than 250 crores, isn't it? The remuneration payable is 60 lakhs, now it is increased to 1 crore 20 lakhs. And if the maximum remuneration, effective capital of the company is 250 crores or more, right? The maximum remuneration, yearly remuneration payable is 60 lakhs, now it is increased to 1 crore 20 lakhs plus 1% of the effective capital in excess of 250 lakhs, 250 crores. So this is what the slab which is given, right? This is what the limit which is given as per the Schedule 5 of the Companies Act. When the company has no profit, when the profits of the company are inadequate, insufficient to pay managerial remuneration. So managerial remuneration should be, under such circumstances, is payable on the basis of effective capital of the company. Effective capital. If it is less than 5 crore, what is the remuneration payable? It is more than 5 crore but less than 100 crore, what is the remuneration payable? If it is more than 100 crore but less than 250 crore, what is the remuneration payable? And if the effective capital is more than 450 crores, what is the remuneration payable? So, based on this effective capital, the remuneration is fixed. It is fixed time to time, right? Earlier it was 30 lakhs, now it is 60 lakhs. Earlier it was 42 lakhs, now it is 84 lakhs. Earlier it was 60 lakhs, now it is 1 crore 20 lakhs, right? And it changes time to time. But if a special resolution is passed by the shareholders, the above limit shall be doubled, right? If the special resolution is passed by the Companies Act to pay managerial remuneration to the personnel, the above limit, the limit whatever I have stated, may also be doubled or may also be increased, taking into account, right, the effective capitals of the company. So these are the various provisions of the Companies Act relating to the managerial remuneration, and we shall discuss more about those managerial remuneration in the next class. And also, we have discussed here regarding the amount to be transferred to general reserve from the profit, but there is no restriction now. In the new act, as per the Companies Act 2013, there is no restriction regarding the transfer to general reserve. Company may transfer any amount or cannot transfer any amount to general reserve. Right? Earlier it was not more than 10% of the profits. So these are the various aspects, and again the major remuneration we have discussed. These are the various aspects we have discussed. There is major remuneration and amount to be transferred to the amount to be transferred to the reserve, right? Special aspects and the various provisions regarding the Companies Act regarding these aspects, right? We will continue next class. Thank you for your watching.